hands meet hands and hearts unite. Through storm and calm we find the light. A place to stand, a place to grow. With faith and truth is all we know, Liberty on Main Street, where hope runs free. In every step, in you and me. Together we rise, together we keep the flame of freedom that never sleeps. Through every challenge, high or low, we hope.
Well, hello, all of you Liberty on Main Streeters. Welcome to episode number 3 of the Mike Church Show here on the Liberty on Main Street. We come in here and we do this once a week or so. We'll be joined by many other broadcasters who will also be adding their content here to the channel. As always, you have to go through the goofy RSTLNE. So, you guys know what to do. Hit that subscribe button down there. Don't forget to tap that bell so you get notifications. Give us a thumbs up. And, of course, leave your comments in the comments section there. We'll answer your comments here. I actually do go to the page and answer your comments. This is episode number 3 here, being recorded today on 05 February 2025. I almost said 2024. 2025. And we have 3 subjects or 3 topics that we're going to talk about here today. Want to remind you that I really need you guys. There's a lot more people watching this show on Liberty on Main Street than actually on my channel. And I think we can get a nice harmonious balance there. Can you head over to Crusade Radio Network? We do this 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's the best morning drive radio talk show that's out there. So maybe you could head on over to Crusade Radio Network on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, sign up for the notifications, and we'll notify you when we go live every morning. And, of course, you can also follow me on CrusadeChannel.com. On X, I am at The King Dude on X. And so you can follow the Crusade Radio Network on Facebook. And I have a personal Facebook page. Of course, we're on Rumble. Again, Crusade Radio Network on Rumble. So follow us there. I want to talk about the events of what has been happening and going on with Trump. I keep calling it Trump 2.0. I should actually call it Trump/Superman 2. It's not an exaggeration to say that there is a Superman-like quality to what is going on here in Trump 2.0. I mean, to the point where you should play at every Trump update. MAGA man, MAGA. The first time around, he went to the cave of MAGA solitude. And he didn't do so well because they stacked everything against him. He was trying to be a politician instead of a businessman and a practically thinking guy. Trump 2.0, Super MAGA, Superman. Trump 2.0, Superman/Trump 2.0, is literally something out of the pages of a John Grisham or I'm trying to think of who could write the novel for this. It wouldn't be someone like Stephen King, because this is not a fiction. Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan. This is so profoundly out of the ordinary. It actually defies definition. You can't go back in history and say, well, this is similar to the presidency. No, it's not. There's nothing that this is similar to. I'm sorry. It's similar to it's not similar to Reagan. It's not similar to Reagan in 1981. It's not similar to Richard Nixon in 1968. It's not similar to, if you want to throw the dishonest Abe out there, to Lincoln in 1861. The only presidency that you might even be in the neighborhood of, maybe the presidency of Andrew Jackson in 1836. And the only reason I even say that is because Jackson was a kind of a practical guy, although he was a nut. He was a madman. Jackson did make it his singular goal to wipe out the U.S. national debt, to completely just eliminate all of the debt. And he wanted to kill the national bank, too, which he pretty much did. But in the process of doing so, as you know, he wasn't reelected. So there was a singular purpose. You might even say that you could kind of say this is Jefferson 1801. And the only reason I say that is because in 1801, Jefferson's going to come in and he's going to undo the damage that John Adams had done with the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1799. And some of the things that Adams was doing with the executive branch, Jefferson would come and go, you can't do that. This is a limited form of government. And Jefferson would fire off a bunch of executive orders. Of course, Jefferson also would do some things that we've heard President Trump talking about. Jefferson bought Louisiana. Of course, the story goes that this was an entirely unconstitutional act here. Well, one of the books that I put back into print, John Taylor of Caroline County, American Statesman, Jefferson turned to his old friend, one of the smartest probably the smartest of all the founding fathers. Nobody knows this. John Taylor of Caroline County, who just happened to be in the U.S. Senate representing the great state of Virginia, or the Old Dominion as it was called at the time. Jefferson went to Taylor before he made the deal with Napoleon and said, well, Jonathan, if I purchase Louisiana, can you come up with a reason why this would be a constitutional act? And John Taylor of Caroline County said, I'll get back to you. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll get back to you there, Mr. President. And I don't know what the amount of time was, but Taylor got back to him and said, yep, I can do it. Jefferson was then making the deal. Of course, you had to send a letter across the Atlantic Ocean at that time. You call somebody up and tell them. You had to write the letter off, steal it, put it onto the post, and then they would put it on a boat, on a sailing vessel, and sail it to France. Then he'd have to wait for a response, obviously. So while he was waiting for this, Taylor was busy knocking out the defense. And once Jefferson got the letter back that Napoleon would accept the terms and he bought Louisiana, then he drew up the proclamation as an executive order. And then he sent Taylor to the floor of the Senate because the senators were hopping mad. Among them, Timothy Pickering, who would ultimately try and get the New England states, we'll talk about this in just a moment, to secede from the Union with the thing that they called the Hartford Convention in 1814. In any event, Taylor did what he was told. So my point in bringing this up is Jefferson bought Louisiana. Trump is supposedly trying to buy Greenland. And there was the straightening out of some of the things that Adams had done. So there is something to compare. If you're looking for, I gave you the comparable presidencies. There is no other. No one had a Doge because you didn't have a government big enough to need a Doge. No one had you didn't have to undo lawfare because it had never been done before. There may be some examples of that, but there would be examples here. So Trump 2.0 is something to behold. I want to talk about USAID, and I want to talk about executive powers, and I want to talk about what the president can and cannot do. And by the time I'm done with this little segment here, I hope that you are educated and then you that have the confidence to go into your, Pinterest, Vine, Snapchat, the big ones, and to go into your individual groups or right here on YouTube and say, no, he absolutely can do that. Here's why. I heard the King Dude. He told me why. So, USAID. The president not allowed. Let's hear the Democrats losing their prospective poop over this. We have 3 sound bites here for you. We will start with, well, you know what? There it is. Start with Hakeem Jeffries. So, 3 sound bites here for you. These are Democrats losing their mind. By the way, the one that we're not going to play is another representative, another black woman who's a representative. And why does this keep happening? Jasmine Crockett, now this woman, there's something going on here. Screaming and hollering, like over, in the business we call this overmodulating. You can't even make out what she's saying because she is literally swallowing the mic, screaming at the top of her lungs at President Trump, at Elon Musk, at Doge, at the Trump administration. This is war. You start using violent rhetoric like this, it doesn't take much to set off a left-tard nutbag to go on a shooting spree like happened when my friend, my old young Republicans from the early 1990s buddy, Steve Scalise, Steve and I came up together in Metairie, Louisiana. My old buddy, Steve Scalise, was almost murdered by a nutcase who was unleashed and unhinged and shot up the congressional baseball team when they were out practicing for the annual congressional baseball team, baseball game. And my friend Steve Scalise was almost killed that day. You should get out there in the street and start talking about waging war. Come on, man. I don't even know why I'm appealing to these people, because they're not all there mentally. So we'll start with Hakeem Jeffries. And what he said, you don't have the authority. Yeah, well, we're going to say that he does, and I'll prove it to you in just a minute.
They've done nothing as it relates to lowering the high cost of living. At the same time, they are raiding the government, attempting to steal taxpayer money. That's what the situation at the Treasury Department is all about. We will introduce the Stop the Steal Act in short order.
I need a laugh track here.
To prevent unlawful access with respect to the Department of Treasury's payment system connected to people who are trying to steal personal, sensitive, and confidential information.
The only thing that is trying to be discovered there with the Treasury Department payment system or payment portal, President Trump was actually about this the other day. Anyway, well, we're only giving him limited access, and only as it pertains to the Doge investigations of where the money went. That's all we're looking at. And by the way, Elon doesn't do anything without consulting us first. He brings the things to us. Then we say, let's cut that. Let's do that. Elon Musk does not need the money from the Treasury Department of the United States. You know who's been stealing from the Treasury, though? You, Hakeem. You know who has been literally backing up beep, 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 an armored car truck to the Treasury and sucking tens of billions of dollars at a clip out? You and the Democrat Party. There has been this theft that's going on, and it's called USAID. But USAID is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. They haven't even chopped the little top of the iceberg off yet. So stop the steal. Doesn't it have like, it sounds so desperate. It almost sounds like there's a Brinks job going on. And then here's Trump and J.D. Vance, dressed up as the Brinks job, the bank robbers, and some sort of an armored car backing it up to the Treasury Department. Go, we're going to get in, we're going to steal. This is what I call projection, folks. Democrats are experts at projection. What do they project? They project what it is that they either have done or they wish to do. So this obviously is just a projection of like, hey, You can't steal from the Treasury Department. Yeah, you can't steal from the Treasury Department. Only we can steal from the Treasury Department. Let's get a little deeper into the cavern, though. And it's a stanky, I should say stanky, not stinky, it's stanky. It is a stanky, deep cavern of corruption. Here is Senator Joni Ernst to say, you know, you guys have been blocking us. We tried. They actually, by the way, today is the day that Pam Bondi was confirmed as Attorney General. Trump was there. Her husband was there. We were watching it here. We're going like, oh boy, is this great? Because I'm thinking the Oprah Winfrey show from that show back in the 90s. You get a car, everybody gets a car. You get a subpoena, everybody gets a subpoena. Including you, Hakeem. Yeah, you're going to get one too. Here, Senator Joni Ernst we tried to find out where this money was going through USAID, and they wouldn't tell us.
I have been on USAID's case for years now, going back several years, where I was trying to investigate the expenditures for humanitarian aid, primarily when it came to the war in Ukraine. And what my team and I encountered was absolute obstruction and lies coming out of USAID.
Oh.
They did everything possible to stop me from accessing their records to understand where our taxpayer money was going. I eventually partnered with Representative Mike McCall in the House, and we started a formal congressional investigation. And even after that, they really pushed back, only allowed us access to a small amount of data. But what we found was extreme expenditures on the part of USAID with very little data-driven results. We have seen money funded in the Wuhan Institute of Virology through dollars steered by USAID on dangerous coronaviruses. We saw how that turned out. We've seen funding going to Morocco for pottery classes, tourism in Lebanon, of all places, even when the State Department was advising against travel. I could go on and on and on.
I think we ought to rename this instead of USAID to USAIDS. Get it? Yeah, we're talking about USAIDS. And yes, it is a disease. It is chronic, and yes, it is very queer. USAIDS must be stopped here. There is not a vaccine, but there is a Trump. Members of the Senate and the House of Representatives basically having to sue a federal agency to try to find out what it's doing. Now, we're going to find this out. Folks, I've been at this a long time, 33 years, coming up on 34, long time. Let me tell you what's going to be discovered. And most people either don't know this or would have forgotten about it. Back in 2009, Joseph Robinette Biden made his first trip to Ukraine. Why did Obama choose Biden, who had almost no foreign policy experience whatsoever? Why did he choose Biden? When I say no, I mean almost none.
0.0.
So why did he send Biden to Ukraine? Because there was a grift to be made. The plans had already been set into motion here. The Ukrainians were known, they were famous, or rather infamous, for being the most crooked of the Soviet Socialist Republics. That's what USSR stood for, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Side note, Soviet and Russian. Here, you pass vodka. I tell you what Soviet mean in Russian. Soviet and Russian mean community. That's all it means. It's not evil word. It's good word. But, you know, socialist, communist, we turn it into bad word. Why did they send Biden? Because they knew he was a criminal. They knew that he would perpetrate the crimes. They knew that, and look, it wasn't just the Biden family. It wasn't just the Biden crime family. It was the Romney crime family, the Pelosi crime family. It was the John Kerry Hines, or Teresa Kerry Hines, the wife of John Kerry. It was the Kerry crime family. There were so many of them that were involved in it. It was the Clinton crime family. They sent Biden there to go meet the oligarchs and to go throw it out there that we're going to start funneling U.S. foreign aid to you guys. You have to make the projects up. You have to pretend as though we're funding these things here, building bridges or discovering the secrets of harnessing amoeba farts or whatever the hell they were doing there. You just start making it up. We'll start funding it. And you can hear Obama going, Joe, I'm going to send Joe. Joe's going to be my man in Ukraine. So Biden was sent there to set this up. He was also sent to China to set those deals up. Much of this stuff was funded through USAID. I'll give you an infamous instance of this, or maybe one that some of you will remember. Anyone remember wondering, like, why in the hell do the Saudi Arabians need to hear Bill Clinton speak for 30 minutes and then give him $500,000? Well, they couldn't just give it to him. He couldn't say, we wish to thank you very much for all of the USAID money that you have received and that we have put to good use with all of the various Democrat Party crime families. Here is your commission check for your wife, Secretary of State wife, Hillary Clinton, for great work. They couldn't just write the Clintons a check for $500,000 and then keep writing them checks to the tune of millions of dollars. They had to make some excuse up. But why don't you have Bill come in and address? We so need to hear from President Clinton. Why did the Saudi Arabians didn't need to hear from Clinton, but they needed a cover story for the grift. So the speaking tour. He didn't just speak in Saudi Arabia. He spoke in Qatar. Name your little oil-rich country called here, the United Arab Emirates. He spoke at all of them. They would make little conventions. Somebody from the Obama regime or someone that wasn't directly employed would come in and would speak, and that's how they laundered some of the money. So that is another example of how this. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been going on. The Democrat Party and many Republicans have been using the federal government of the United States and the U.S. Treasury as their personal financier for they and their buddies and their criminal crime families' wealth accumulation since the 1960s. Maybe even longer than that. Why are they howling so loudly? Because the people that were getting the money, the ones that were being paid to keep their mouths shut and to pretend like they were spending it to aid and assist all of the downtrodden and sick and poor people across the world. This was a global game. I want you to watch Michael Matherson Miller's movie, Poverty, Inc. You want to see where USAID money was laundered through Haiti? Watch Poverty, Inc. Now, I don't remember if he actually identifies USAID. I think he did. But that's an example of how they would launder the money. All right, a little bit more on this. Then I'm going to explain to you that does the president have the authority to, when he discovers this stuff, to cut it off? Well, he does. And I'm going to explain to you how. First, play the montage of Democrats howling about this. No. If some kid beats you up on the playground, it's like, I'm the biggest guy on the block in this playground. They see Trump coming, and they know the end is near. I'm coming to take your lunch money. I'm coming to take all of your criminal activities. This is the howl of someone who has been busted and who is now, look, I don't think they're faking it. They are literally desperate because they really and truly, they don't know how to deal with someone who is an actual mover and shaker and someone that's actually has accomplished things outside of government and knows how to get things done. They don't know what to do. Think about how pathetic their governing class is then, that all you have to do is just have some skill in making the art of the deal, if you will, and of actually running things and trying to run them efficiently for a profit, for example. You can completely bewilder and then send into fits of maniacal lunacy, an entire political party that does not have an answer for this because they don't know how to do anything legally. They don't know how to do anything through hard work. They don't know how to plan and scheme anything. All they really know is how to steal. And now they've been told, steal anymore, you're going to jail. You might be going to jail for what you previously stole. You're cut off. We're putting in a new security system, basically. Putting bars on the window at the Treasury Department. Putting a motion sensor detector so you can't sneak in there. And, yeah, you're cut off. This is what it sounds like.
You mean to tell me a man worth over $400 billion is going to decide what happens with my grandma's Social Security check?
Well, actually, he's not saying anything about that.
Elected Elon Musk to nothing. And yet, Elon Musk is seizing the power that belongs to the American people. We are here to fight back.
When we open up the Senate every single morning, we don't pledge allegiance to the billionaires. We don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk.
It's so sad.
We don't pledge allegiance to the creepy 22-year-olds working for Elon Musk.
At least they work.
We pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
Whatever,
So
Mal
I wanna
Murphy.
make sure that my mother gets her Social Security check, not because she pledges allegiance to Elon, but because she pledges allegiance to the United States of America.
This is the most corrupt bargain we've ever seen in American history.
Really?
Elon Musk
Oh,
gives
really?
$250 million to elect Donald Trump, and Donald Trump turns over the keys to the United States government to Elon Musk and his billionaire friends and his cronies. Are we going to let that stand?
An army of nerds or
Hell no,
cronies?
we're not going to let that stand.
We know who we work for. We know that we work for the American people. And what we not gonna do is stand around while they pull this bull.
No, we not gonna do. We not
now.
gonna do it.
We are gonna be in your face. We are gonna be on your and we are gonna make sure. We are gonna
Do
make
it.
sure you understand what democracy looks like. And this
You
is
understand what democracy look like? Oh, I'm so sad. I'm so sad. I say these are crocodile tears, but I don't want to insult crocodiles. Crocodiles at least have some self-respect. And look, it's a very rare occasion for a crocodile or an alligator to eat a human baby. You guys chew up human babies for fun. Isn't it? But folks, don't you just want to sit back for just a minute? I mean, I felt like I should sit back and... That's popcorn I'm tossing in my mouth. Sip a beer, eat some popcorn, and go like, hey, man, I'm really enjoying this show, aren't you? This might be the greatest thing that ever happened in my 34 years of broadcasting. Hell, in the history of my adult life. Democrats in fits of rage and desperation. We don't pledge allegiance. By the way, do you know, this is how easy to crack this nut was. Elon hired... What is it, Maggie? 6? How many nerds is it? It's not even a lot of nerds. Basically, these kids are high on the autism spectrum. They're very focused. And they could be very focused on coding and things like that. They just started opening like the spreadsheets up and doing a search by a category number. Food, medical supplies, whatever the case may be, and then seeing who the disbursement went to, and they're going like, who the hell is that? What company is that? What corporation is that? This is an army of nerds. 6 nerds strong. Tell you what, no, dude, don't nerd me, bro. 6 nerds strong generates that kind of hysteria. And he's not going to with his cronies and army. So now nerds, I rather like this, by the way. I used to love, back in the 80s and early 90s, going to the Revenge of the Nerd movies. The nerds were cool. I think Elon is actually making nerds cool again. Make nerds great again. I think that's a slogan we can all get behind. Make nerds great again. I like it. Finally here. And that he can't do this. Note that they don't actually cite any law. No particular law other than Hakeem Jeffries, and we're going to file an act to stop the steal. Will you go ahead? Because it's not going to get out of committee. It's not going to go to the floor of the House of Representatives. You're pretty much done for 2 years. No one can explain this, though, from the point of view of what they're actually doing better than Stephen Miller. If you don't know who Stephen Miller is one of these guys that is accomplished in private life and successful, and was also a MAGA guy and very loyal to President Trump, and suffered greatly because he and his wife were actually investigated by the FBI in one of those lawfare cases that they were waging against President Trump. So Stephen Miller's got a little skin in the game, and he's playing for keeps here. But Stephen Miller is asked about this. Well, can you tell us tell us a little bit about why USAID? Why are you guys going after USAID? Here's the explanation.
There is probably no entity in the government that is more of an entrenched power center of unelected bureaucrats with less accountability, less oversight than USAID. They funnel money to their cronies all over the world through a swampy network of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and cutouts, including potentially some very troubling elements of focusing on things like regime change and destabilizing foreign countries. But this is not about America's interests. Donald Trump is courageously restoring democracy. Article 2 of the executive branch vests all power by the Constitution. Article 2 of the Constitution vests all power of the executive branch in a president. It's known as the vesting clause. It says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular, not in the bureaucracy, not in unelected, lifetime tenured career civil servants. Americans voted for one man, Donald J. Trump. They didn't vote for a single bureaucrat at USAID. They voted for Donald Trump to make government accountable to the taxpayer, to make government accountable for them. If the Democrats are saying, as they are, that President Trump cannot implement his agenda at USAID, that Donald Trump cannot fire recalcitrant bureaucrats, what they are saying, what Democrats are saying, is they oppose democracy itself. They oppose the idea that the American people can elect a man, in this case, our President Donald Trump, to reform the government according to the will of the people. This is a battle between the will of the people through their President Donald Trump and...
Exactly. By the way, welcoming all of you that are listening or watching this on Liberty on Main Street. Remember to tap that notification button down there. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I do this every day of the week, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Did I get that right? 3 and 5? I think I got that right. 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 to 9 a.m. on the Crusade Radio Network right here on the YouTube. You can also download my app and listen to me as a radio host, as I have been for 33 years. Download it at crusadechannel.com/app. Let's talk about this vesting clause for a minute. Mr. Church, please, what is this vesting clause? I never heard of the vesting clause. Well, the vesting clause is contained in this little, it's a beaut clock. It's a beaut in this little guy here, the U.S. Constitution. What does the U.S. Constitution say? Well, it's Article 2, Section 2. Describes his powers, and that the executive power of the United States shall consist in, as Stephen said, in a presidency. It's fascinating historically to me that we're finally having a conversation about the limitations of presidential power. You know, when the Democrats are in charge, presidents can do whatever the hell they want. If Obama wants to drop bombs and wage an undeclared war against Muammar Gaddafi and Libya, Well, according to the Democrats, the vesting power gives him the authority to do so, and there's not pretty much anything the Boehner Congress could do about it, even though Boehner may think he doth protest it too much. He did protest it an awful lot against it. But the Democrats and their media allies and the court said, oh, no, this is Obama. We have the vesting power. He's the commander-in-chief. He can pretty much do what he wants. By the way, he could not. And I would not support President Trump in doing it either. When Biden was president, the vesting power gave him all sorts of things. He could write checks. He could write $175 billion checks to Volodymyr Zelensky. No congressional authorization required. He could send plane loads of $100 bills stacked 4 feet tall on pallets to Iran. Not going to get into a discussion on the foreign policy with Iran. Another topic for another day. I will, but not today. Biden also could say, Truender Day, some of the press, me and all Corn Pop are going to, we're relieving the student debt. How many people was it? 1.6 million, I want to say? Even though the Supreme Court said that's a statutory authority that belongs to Congress. You can't do that. But the vesting clause and vesting power said that Obama could, or Biden could. Here's a question for you. What does the vesting clause, what does the executive authority of the United States actually extend to? I'm going to give you the Cliff Note version. There is a video on my website on the Crusade Radio Network. It is a Civics 101 lesson in Article 2, Section 2 in the vesting power, and what it actually says. Quick version. Well, the president is not an unelected king, so he can't do whatever he wants to do. That's just not true, and President Trump is not trying to do that. But, and we have this on pretty good authority from James Madison himself. Madison said that if the laws of the United States began to be so voluminous and so complicated and so large and exceeded the authority granted to the legislative branch in Article 1, Section A, basically, that, well, then you should expect that the power of the president to execute those laws and as an executive over those laws and of those laws is also going to expand. So in the most pure sense, before the abuse began, the Article 1, Section 8 powers, which started early on, and before the laws began to stack up, they're probably higher than the Empire State Building today, if you stacked them all together here. Was the executive limited, like when Washington was president? Yeah. But then it kept expanding. Can you imagine the expansion that's happened since the 1960s, I call it the general government, the federal government of the United States? Well, as the legislative authority and the amount of legislation and regulations and all this stuff has expanded, so in like kind has the authority and power of the executive to execute. It is plainly stated around the time of the founding that the power to execute also required if the president or the executive thought something was improper that the duly elected legislature had done, well, his first act was he could veto it. What if they went ahead and overrode his veto and said, no, we're going to do it anyway, and we have the votes to do it? If he still deemed it improper, was he to execute that law? Well, again, it depends on how far along we are in American history. Maybe at the beginning, Washington might have been kind of on the hook that he would have to. But again, as the power of the legislature expanded, and of the judiciary too, well, then so did the powers of the executive. I explain all of this in that video, Civics 101, and the Crusade Radio Network site. So I have some other stuff I want to cover. I'm just going to give you the long... The answer to the question is yes, he can. President Trump, as the executive, can look at the USAID that was created by an executive order and unexecutive order that joker right out of existence. He does not need a statutory authority of Congress. John F. Kennedy created it in 1961. He can uncreate it. Now, Democrats love to say, yeah, but this was turned into, and there was a statutory thing, and we made the thing. I don't think so. Kennedy created it as an agency. Trump can uncreate it. It's as simple as that. He can also, in the execution of the laws, say that, well, I'm just going to transfer this authority that Kennedy gave. I'm going to give it to Marco Rubio. I'm going to transfer it to the State Department. No, there's nothing, Congress. Unless Congress in a statute said he couldn't, which they didn't, well, then he can do it. So at the end of the day, legislative power expanded, so did the executive power. By the way, I also believe that that extends to what they call rescissions. Well, the president's saying, you have so exceeded your constitutional authority here, and I am in charge of executing this law. I am not going to spend that money. I am not going to execute that expenditure because I believe it to be improper, above and beyond what your authority is and the act that you say you appropriated it. It also is not in the interest of the people of the United States, as I took an oath to, so I'm not going to spend the money. They can't make him. And that's what he's doing, and he should keep doing it. And we should all pray that he continues to do so. All right, before I run out of time, I've got a couple other things I want to talk about. Let's start with this one. I know I printed this. Here it is. Headline. You get the cheap version. One of my favorite subjects here. I grew up and I cut my political teeth in the late 1980s on this kind of stuff. How many of you know what cafe is? Now, many of you, especially you youngers, are going like, yeah, sure, dude, I know what cafe is, man. It's like it's a hot drink, like Starbucks and stuff, man. Yeah, that's a cafe. Yeah, it's where I go to, get my organic, tofu and noodles and stuff. No, different kind of cafe. CAFE. It's a law that changed the three largest automobile manufacturers in the U.S. from being independent automakers and industries that had to be self-sufficient, make a profit, make good products, and support themselves. CAFE turned them into basically gas companies or electric companies, utilities of the federal government of the United States. Ever notice that every government entity in the United States, on the entire continent, that they all seem to drive the same car? Coincidence? Why am I the only one that ever thinks of things like that? Why is it that almost every cop car in the U.S. for the last 40 years has been what? No, there are examples or exceptions, but this is pretty much a rule. What is a cop car? A Ford Crown Victoria. Crown Vic, as it's called. It's an ugly car. The only reason it still exists is because governments buy it. But why? Why do they buy it? Well, because they got contracts. Why do they have contracts? Well, to make sure that this is basically a donation. This is a subsidy. You shut up about things like CAFE standards, and we'll buy 150,000 fleet vehicles from you every 4 years. When we're done with them, then we send them to some auctioneer and they sell them all. Why did I bring that up? Well, the entirety of the automobile industry in the U.S. is a racket. The whole thing's a racket. Just like the airline industry is a complete and total racket. You people do know that the airlines are the most heavily subsidized industries and companies on earth. No one, except for California, sucks up more subsidy than the airlines. What about the automakers? Well, here's how they do it to the automakers. The automakers agreed in the 1970s, okay, we're going along with you, Ralph Nader, and the early edition of the tree-hugging, frog-licking weirdos called environmentalists. We'll go along with you that we need to make cars lighter. You know what happens when you make cars lighter? You make them more dangerous. We need to make them lighter. We need to make them more fuel efficient. So you start taking metal out. You start removing things. They came up with this thing called CAFE. What does it stand for? Corporate Average Fuel Economy. You see, you learn things by watching this show. Corporate Average Fuel Economy, CAFE standards. What is a CAFE standard? What does it do? Well, it basically says you take all the cars that Ford makes, for example. You take the little one, the Ford Fiesta, you take the giant F-350, and then you get an average fuel economy. And then the government said, well, we think that the average ought to be 22 miles a gallon. Well, whatever the number is. I don't even know what it is. Well, that's the average, the A part of CAFE. And then they say, okay, well, so then you can only make a certain amount of these big cars, and then you have to make these little ones. When you make the little cars, people go like, yeah, but we can afford them. Yeah, does it have a motor? Does it have a motor? Yeah, but we can afford it. We can afford it. Maybe everyone wasn't meant to drive a car. Maybe everyone should we should all have larger cars. At one point in time, for almost 60 years, there was no such thing as a compact. You know what? You know how compacts came along? Basically, the Fed said you can't make F-350s anymore. Guzzling, especially during the 1970s and the gas shortage, guzzling too much gas. Well, what are we supposed to do? Yeah, what the hell are we supposed to do, you moron? Make Fiestas. So they set the CAFE standard. How do you offset the SUV off the Excursion with an average fuel economy of 22, 24, whatever the number is? How do you do that? You make the little car. You know what happens to people that drive little cars if they get in accidents? They get maimed or killed at higher rates. So we're going to save the planet and a bunch of snail-darting frogs. And ice caps aren't going to melt and what have you here. But, you know, a couple thousand Americans got to die. It's a great trade-off. Corporate average fuel economy. Here's another way. You know how they kept the Japanese from, and this is actually, I'm not actually opposed to this, but there's another way to do it. You just tariff it. Do you know how they kept the Japanese and the Korean car companies out of the truck market? Have you ever noticed that the only truck, pretty much, that you ever see that's popular, that's made by a Japanese or a Korean company is what? A Toyota Tundra. Now, why is that? Well, we gave the Toyota company a much higher CAFE, meaning it's almost impossible. You'd have to sell like 100 little Tercels or Camrys or whatever to offset one Tundra. Well, Toyota was able to figure out a way to do that and to make the deal. All of the other companies haven't done it. They haven't even attempted to do it. So this explains why you don't have a foreign truck market, because you do know that Suzuki makes a wonderful little truck. As a matter of fact, you might see President Trump may unleash the American ingenuity in the car market again. Oh, well, we'd love to see that, a new renaissance, if you will, of muscle cars. Wouldn't that be cool? How about a renaissance in the truck business, to where you would start to imitate what they do over in Asia? And then, what do they call those little trucks? There's a name for them. They're not, I forget what they're called. They're small. You can get one for under $10,000. Can you imagine that? And all they do is haul stuff. No extended cab, no giant engine, no lift kits. It does have a trailer hitch. You can't pull things with it, but it has a full-length 8-foot bed. The Suzuki makes these things. They're all over Asia now. Hardly anyone is driving a full-size truck. It's illegal to buy one here in the U.S. unless it's 25 years old. Again, how do they keep them out? Corporate average fuel economy. The Suzuki one is a carry. It's called a Suzuki. You got a picture of one pulled up? Here, I'll show you what it looks like here. It's really cool. I tried to buy one. I tried to buy one, and I was basically told, yeah, it's pretty much illegal here in the U.S. You can't buy one. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't buy one? Well, you can buy one if it's 25 years old. Yeah, it's called a Suzuki Carry. All it does is haul stuff. Boy, they're making you jump through hoops of flame. I'm almost positive on the Suzuki website that it's the featured vehicle. There it is. That is a Suzuki Carry. No extended cab. No, I don't think it has air conditioning. An 8-foot bed. By the way, it tilts, it lifts, it dumps things. There it is. Look at it. It even does it sideways like that. Very practical. Why isn't Chevy making a little truck like that? Well, because it goes against the subsidied corporate average fuel economy scam. So Sean Duffy has put an end to it. Sean Duffy has filed a regulation. I know these guys for 30 years. I know the founder, Fred Smith. CEI, Corporate Enterprise Institute, or Competitive Enterprise Institute, applauds Sean Duffy for directing the NHTSA to commence an immediate review and reconsideration of all existing fuel economy standards for model years 22 and later, and to, quote, propose a rescission or replacement, close quote, of such standards as unnecessary to bring the CAFE program into compliance with Trump's executive order unleashing American energy and applicable law. President Trump is the only president in my adult life, and that includes Ronald Reagan, that I have ever heard actually say CAFE. He knows what the CAFE standards are. In one of his executive orders, he said, we need to get rid of them, get rid of them, get rid of them. You talk about unleashing ingenuity then in the automobile manufacturing. How come I can't go to Walmart, for example, and just buy a car? White print, white background, black print, car. Why do I have to have airbags in it? Maybe I don't want 6 airbags. Why do I have to have an extended cab? Maybe I don't need an extended. Why do I have to have electric windows? Why can't I have a good old hand crank? Why do I have to have an automatic transmission? I should be able to go to a Walmart or a dealership somewhere and say, I just want a car. White label, black block lettering, car, or 4-door. Average retail price, less than $10,000. Talk about unleashing some competition here. What if maybe a small manufacturing company? You know that John DeLorean was a threat to the big three, and that's why they had to set him up in the 1980s and basically killed the DeLorean car company. Same thing with Tucker. You know, I've actually seen the only, I can't remember, it's like a half a dozen Tucker cars. You know where one of them is? If you ever go to Napa Valley, go visit Francis Ford Coppola's winery, and the Tucker car is actually there. You can actually see it. I've seen it. I touched the Tucker car. Point being, kill CAFE, unleash competition for your automobile and truck purchasing dollar. I think that's a great thing. And I think the cars will become cool again. Instead of utility items that are loaded up with all kind of crap that you don't need, they'll become cool and competitive again. We might even get muscle cars back. Finally today, so great stuff happening. Finally today, why are so many fake conservatives? Why are they so horrified of this word, secession? California's secessional delusions are back. Why is it a delusion to secede? Well, this is the Decepticon outfit, AM Greatness. We got some decent guys that write there, but most of them are what I call Decepticons. Exactly what are you trying to conserve? Well, we're trying. We have a muscular foreign policy. That's something I think you keep using that word. I don't think that word means what you think it means. Californians are disgruntled with President Trump, and they're promoting a ballot initiative to allow the state to secede. I love to have a listener that likes to talk about this. Secede. Why not? The initiative is being promoted by a dude named Marcus Ruiz Evans, a Fresno resident who describes himself as an activist, debate moderator, and author. After the initiative was cleared for circulation by the California Secretary of State, in a local television interview, Ruiz Evans claimed that the 2016 polling found 32% of Californians support full secession. You know what the number is in Louisiana? It's almost 50%. Now, why are people terrified of this? Well, it may become less necessary for most sane, normal people if the Trump administration is successful in doing what it is that it's doing with DOGE and the other attempts to reform and dismantle this monstrosity that I call the Leviathan state, or that is perched on the banks of the Potomac River, or you could just say writ large, Mordor on the Potomac River. That's a good. I've been using that name for 15 years. It works. Why are people so about, and it's illegal? It's not illegal. You can't make illegal a political act. That's like saying that you're not allowed to say the word bill. I'm just a bill. That's what I am up on Capitol Hill. Remember on the Schoolhouse Rock? Secession is a legal act. It is a legal process. It says we sever the bonds that connect us with another state. And then we reclaim our own independent sovereignty. Pretty much what Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence. Well, how could it be illegal if Jefferson actually cited it? When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to sever the political bands or bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which nature and the laws of nature's God entitled them, a decent respect for the opinions of mankind, required them to state the reasons that impel them to the separation. If Jefferson had just said secession instead of separation, no Lincoln. Still a Confederacy. Maybe no Constitution, but he said separation instead of secession. Same thing, no difference. Well, Mike, but you're not allowed to do that. The union is for, Mr. Church, please, we are a perpetual union. It's forever. It's illegal. You can't make that illegal. Now, I say that the threat of states seceding is a good check against central government power. And that every state ought to always keep in its back pocket that it has the right to withdraw from the compact that is the Constitution. And that's what the Constitution is. It's a compact. So when you see this kind of thing, I say that you ought to say, and you ought to say, well, why is the Union so busted and so top-down tyrannical that the people in the states want to leave it? Well, maybe they just want to be independent. Maybe Louisianans want to be Louisianans. Maybe Californians want to be Californians. There's no rule that says you have to be in a union. You can. And it may even be to people's advantages to be in said union. But it's not required. It certainly isn't illegal. And quite frankly, California is the hellhole from which almost all of the evils that beset our land today originate in. So if California wants to secede, if they want to go, yeah, man, like secede, and like secede, like, yo, dude. Let them have it. Maybe some other states will get courageous then, too. But then again, for the southern states and the sane people, it may be unnecessary if the Trump administration 2.0, where we started this broadcast, is successful in its USAID and the ending of much of this insanity and the restructuring or just elimination of all of it. By the way, Trump administration 2.0 has eliminated the Department of Education. True story. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Mike Church Show here on Liberty on Main Street. We do this every week. Again, I remind you, you can watch me every weekday morning, 6 to 9 a.m. on the Crusade Radio Network, or you can listen like it's an all-radio show. If you can't figure out how to get audio off the internet through your car radio, you probably shouldn't have a smartphone. So, assuming that you all can, 6 to 9 a.m., CrusadeChannel.com, video version, and the Crusade Radio Network on the YouTube. I want to thank our lovely producer over there, Mrs. Maggie O'Connell, who produces this show. Thanks to the Zester, thanks to Jeremy, and thanks to Mark, the original Mark Z, for having me here as part of Liberty on Main Street. See you next time. And remember, as I always say, as we part company, have a safe and blessed remainder of the day. God bless you, and Mary keep you.
Where hands meet hands and hearts unite, through storm and calm we find the light. A place to stand, a place to grow, with faith and truth is all we know, we know. Liberty on Main Street, where hope runs free in every step, in you and me. Together we rise, together we keep the flame of freedom that never sleeps.